Hey all, Mark Slane with the United States Krav Maga Association. Today, getting the point across that if you're going to teach self-defense, you should be talking to cops. Um, I've worked with a lot of cops, great people, and I owe a lot to them. I pick their brains. I learn from them more than they learn from me, probably. Just a few of them. There's Rob Harley and Tony Adlisberger in Alaska. Mike Wolf in Connecticut. Sheriff Mobley around La Junta, Colorado. Bobby Day, Sergeant Cottle in Kentucky State Troopers, Chris Perriott in Michigan, Al Gwynn, Tucson, Jason Page, Indiana. I mean, I've worked with so many. I've worked with a slew in Colorado. Can't even remember all their names. Sergeant Matt Kissel in Gahanna, Ohio, and Sergeant Brandon Hicks retired from Atlantic Beach, Florida. My two biggest influences, two of my dearest friends. I pick their brains constantly, learn a lot from them. I guess especially Sergeant Hicks. He's the co-lead instructor for the USKMA, and I've taught a lot of law enforcement with him, and it's just amazing to me what I get out of that. When I go to trainings, and in that training, there sits, some high-level SWAT operators, and the instructor never asks them anything, never asks them their opinions, or, hey, would you do? Or that just drives me crazy. To me, that's an instructor that thinks he knows it all and can't learn from anybody. I mean, if I've got people that level in my classes, I don't have an ego. I ask them. Matter of fact, hey, I'm not even going to talk about this. You talk about it. You see this. And that's the point. If we're going to teach self-defense, most of us, we aren't seeing violence on a daily basis. We haven't had somebody try to stab us, pull a gun on us. Most of us don't see the after effects of violence, daily, at least weekly on their jobs. These guys do. So why wouldn't we want to ask them questions? Why wouldn't we want to learn from them? Sergeant Hicks, he fought people trying to do him harm, I don't know, probably dozens of times a year over his career. So, I haven't been in a real fight since I think the 8th grade. So why wouldn't I ask him, these things? Learn some very interesting things when we talk to cops. Just a couple of them. You've heard me. I think this is a Rory Miller quote, but he says, ask any cop, who would they rather come up against? A very proficient black belt martial artist or some crazy nut that wants to claw off their face and chew their eyes? They always pick the martial artists. They are not afraid of technique. They're afraid of mindset. Right there's something we can learn in teaching our classes. The techniques, yes, we want to be good at techniques, but that mindset, those cops don't want to see somebody that won't quit, that's a nut, that wants to do them harm, that no matter how hard you hit them, they keep coming. This is just a scary opponent. And, I've never had a cop choose the martial artist with all those skills. They don't want that nut with the mindset that wants to come forward. So, something to learn right away there. Just some things in our techniques and, our front choke where we do the two-hand pluck. I have heard of Krav organizations taking that out because, they say that's not a realistic attack. For somebody just to stand there and choke you, that's not realistic. They would come up with force. They would push you back. And then you go and talk to cops and they'll tell you the choke that they see, 90% of the chokes they've ever seen, is a domestic situation where he is standing there choking her, looking in her eyes. He wants to show the power. He wants to see the fear in her eyes. So, what we're saying is an unrealistic attack is the attack that happens 90% of the time when a choke's involved as far as law enforcement see. And, they go on these, unfortunately, there's places where they go on these domestic attacks daily, daily. Another one that, I was guilty of is making fun of, in martial arts, they learn knife defenses from 15 feet away. Nobody attacks you from 15 feet away. They come up and they knife you, they shank you. Go talk to your cops. The knifings that they go on more than any other knifing is domestic situations where you're in the kitchen 15 feet away, you grab a knife and you race after your loved one that you love so much. So here we're saying that this is an unrealistic attack when law enforcement who see these things daily will tell you that's the attack we see most often. Again, it's a domestic situation. He or she is pissed. They grab a knife. They come charging at them. So, these things that when I hear, I think, well, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's not a usual attack. That doesn't make sense. Talk to people that see this stuff. They'll tell you, well, yeah, the thing that you're saying isn't a likely attack is the most likely attack. So these things, we can certainly learn from picking their brains and asking them questions. So many different things. I saw a video of a knife expert. He said, I hide the knife behind my leg. I don't want them to see it. When they come up, and, I think it was Sergeant Hicks, he said, what is this guy, a paid assassin? If I have a knife, it's out. I'm saying, hey, I have a knife. Get the hell away from me. So I don't want to have to stab somebody and fight for my life. Scare that person into leaving. Just things that make so much sense. I get sent handgun retention videos, and I always run them by Brandon because, he's taken guns from people. He has had people try to take his gun. I've never had somebody trying to take my gun and kill me. Why would I want to come up with answers when I could talk to people who have? Usually when he sees them, he says, way too defensive. He's not worried about, I don't want you to take my gun. He's worried about, I'm going to kick your butt and you won't get my gun. All of his handgun retentions are offensive, and we've changed every one that we do in the U.S. KMA to what he does. They're offensive. I am striking. I am pulling the trigger. I am going forward. Retention isn't defensive. Retention is offensive. Even when it gets down to, how do we react to these situations? Again, these law enforcement officers that I talk to, they have seen so much stuff, the aftermath of horrible crimes. They deal with this stuff all the time. So, Brandon, he does an excellent lecture to his new officers. It's basically about, is this person rational? And I think I did a video about this a couple months ago because, it's so cool. Is this person rational? As a person, if I was walking on the street and somebody starts screaming and pointing and running up to me, and I guess our natural instinct would be to, I don't know this person. Who is this person? Why are they being this way? Why? Okay, I'm going to try and walk away. Hey, what's going on? We would be confused, not knowing what to do. If we would ask ourselves as soon as that happened, is this person rational? Well, evidently not. It's a stranger. They're screaming and belligerent at me for no reason. If the person isn't rational, we have to do one of two things: get out of there very quickly or attack first. It's an irrational person. Irrational people don't do what we would expect them to do. They don't do what we do. This was just, I don't know. To me, this is just the coolest thing that he shows his officers. And he's actually had a few of them say, that saved my life. This person ended up, he was going to try to kill me, but right off the bat, I didn't freeze or think, what? I thought, this is an irrational person. So hence, just the insight of these guys, again, daily, they are seeing violence, the aftermaths. They are in fights. They're trying to cuff people and put people down that don't want cuffed. They have guns pulled on them. They have knives swung at them. All these things, the average self-defense instructor, coming from whatever, martial arts, they probably haven't been in any of these situations, maybe ever, and certainly not very many, where these law enforcement are weekly basis they're seeing these things. So, the whole point of this is, if you're teaching self-defense, find some cops, talk to them, pick their brains. Hey, what crimes are going down in our city? Hey, what are you seeing? Hey, what would you do if? What is your answer to this? It just completely will change your mind, because, again, we're talking to people that have been there, done that over and over and over. So, I'm blessed to have all those law enforcement officers, in my life, and especially, two of my dearest friends are great cops that I can ask questions to. But, if you're going to teach this stuff, know what you're teaching for. Again, I think it was Sergeant Rory Miller who has a quote that martial arts are odd in that they have all the answers but don't know what the questions are. When I see that knife that stays out after the attack and they do a figure four and they take them down, it's like, have you ever seen a real life knife attack? Go Google it. There's all kinds of them on the internet. When that arm is going in a sewing machine and it's slippery with blood, there's no way you're going to pull off that defense. So we have to actually study violence and see what's actually happening and talk to people who actually have been there and done that to be able to teach the stuff. Change your mind on what you're teaching often. It'll change your techniques. Mark Slane, United States Krav Maga Association.